Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Good morning.
Right. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome back, everybody, to WRX Tuning. We're here in Harvey's garage at the Boostcreep, and on the dyno, you've got a 2022 WRX finally.
Yay!
So Cobb just released. Well, they came out with the AccessPort not long ago, but now they have tuning software for it, and you've got this. This is one of the first ones you've had on the dyno and being able to like actually tune and tinker with the touch. And you said we should come down and talk about it. So
sure, yeah. Yeah, I invited you down. I think there's a lot of people on the internet trying to make a splash after all the EPA stuff. This feels like a clean sheet, not just for Cobb, but for Subaru, where the aftermarket is going to have to, do everything on the up and up and do it correctly, and we're not going to be, I think even owners aren't going to be really tinkering with the cars too much, and that's okay. It's going to be different, but this car is also acting different than usual. Yeah.
So like just as a starting point, so this is a 2022 WRX. It's mostly stock. What, if any, modifications have been done to it?
Oh, it looks like I know all he's done is these wheels. They're Avids. They're probably pretty light. Some Continental Extreme contacts or nice tires. And then they've added or removed the mufflers. That's all they've done.
So basically, wheels and tires and a muffler delete. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so stock otherwise, 100%.
100% stock,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Did you do a baseline on the car?
I did do a baseline, yeah, and I'm already ready for you guys.
So, I mean, what was your initial reading and what was your initial impression just of the baseline dyno run on this car?
I'll say this is the initial reading, and it was about 251 at the wheels. I did 2 pulls with it off. When we have the AccessPort uninstalled, we can't really monitor data, so I don't know if the dynamic multiplier was high or not. I'm sure it wasn't on the first pull. But on the second pull, it actually lost a few horsepower. I got 255 on one pull, but that was pretty cold, and then 251 on the other. For comparison, the FA20 DIT cars, I had quite a few hitting 207. That's a weird thing to have them be so consistent, but stock ones were about 207.
Wow.
And that's, and I'll say stock STIs are not as consistent, and I would see about 220 to 235, so a much larger span. And those were all stock tires, stock everything.
So this car, this 2022 WRX stock, is dynoing more on average than an STI was dynoing, and definitely a lot more than the FA20 WRX did.
Yeah, for sure. That's wonderful. And then the other thing I'd like to say is even when I would tune an STI to stage 2 with an exhaust, even a high flow cat, things like that, we would only get 250 to 265 out of them.
Sure.
So this is making as much power as a well-tuned STI without any tuning at all. And then the torque curve is just absolutely flat. I did load it up on this pull, so this is me brake boosting it, and you can see it makes a little torque spike. On this pull, I think I only saw about 10 pounds, so we're at 5,000 feet above sea level, so that may be different than sea level.
So it's doing all of that at relatively low boost pressure.
Yeah.
And totally stock, and which is, when this car was announced and it came out, and I think it makes 3 more horsepower than the FA20 WRX, like peak power.
Sure.
And everybody was really disappointed, but now you've put it on the dyno and you're seeing it is actually making a lot more power, like usable power, than what the FA20 WRX did.
Oh yeah, much more at every point. This is amazing. Yeah, it's really good.
And as good as that was, so then when you put the Cobb tune on the car, what did you see or what happened?
Well, the Cobb tune appears to be safe and a good starting point. I will say that a lot of the off-the-shelf maps over the years have gotten better and better to the point where with STI Stage 2s, sometimes I can only make as little as 5 horsepower more safely than the off-the-shelf map. This one, I'll say it's cold enough now, and these are high-compression engines that the FA20 DIT didn't like hot summer days, and we're working here in, teens and 20s lately. So this car is being very impressive, but I would like to see what it does on hot days as well.
And this is all in pump gas too. We should also mention this is just Colorado 91 octane. Which is as high as we can get. That's really wild. Well, did the behavior, did the torque curve and everything change significantly with the stage 1 reflash?
It did. Yeah, let's take a look at that. I can pull it up by just clicking on this. And actually this car, it came in with that reflash done.
Okay.
And so I did, numerically these numbers are lower because I did those baselines before I did, this is number 2, so I did 2 baselines, this was the second one, and it made an extra 15 horsepower, but you can see the torque curve is becoming much more like a turbo car, where it pulls you back and then slowly decreases. And over here, I actually have the torque curves lined up, and we can actually, if we level on the internet anyway, the people who are posting up are seeing not 250 but 270 to 290 stock.
Wow.
And
this is on pump gas. And this is on stock cars.
Yeah. And you know what it probably
crazy.
is? All those numbers are probably 93 octane, so there's probably a 10 horsepower difference or so.
Yeah.
So we're seeing about what we should compared to other people, different parts of the world. And I should also say these numbers are corrected for altitude, so that's about a 20% above what our raw numbers are.
This car, I mean, it's going to feel in the ballpark of a stock STI stock, and now you reflash it, and now it's going to feel, or the numbers show out that it makes the power in the range of like a stage 2 STI.
Yeah.
Just with the tweak of the map.
Yeah, just off the shelf. Yeah. And then I'll say this. I'm right now we're trying to figure out, it's cold weather, we're trying to figure out what the potential of this car is, maybe with a front mount on it or some mods and stuff. And so this is a gift, the cold is. We can really push the cars a lot more safely in the cold weather, but we also want to see what it does in hot weather, and we can't do that yet. But what we can say is, even in cold weather, STIs weren't making this kind of power. And so I'll show you what happened when I played with it, and here is another 14 pulls later of careful slope tuning, and you can see the horsepower on this dyno is up to 280, which is where a really slow STI on E85 would have been, like say a stage 3 STI, but without doing any sort of exhaust or any other mods.
And this is still on pump gas.
This is still on pump gas.
Still on pump gas.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can see the torque is starting to way outweigh the horsepower, and you could see the factory, the torque is actually lower than the horsepower, but now that we're treating it like a proper turbo car, it's starting to really get torquey. The truth is, there's another reason, and that's boost. We're running. I'm running 22 pounds to get to that, which I don't think I'm going to let go out the door that way.
And what was it stock?
Stock was 10 psi.
10 psi, and then you're able to tune it up to 22 psi.
Yeah.
How comfortable are you at that boost pressure? Like, do you think in part it's because of the cold weather?
No, I'm comfortable with the cold weather, and I'm comfortable with it making that, but I'm not comfortable being the first guinea pig or putting my name on this tune and saying, "Hey, go out the door and let's be maverick about this."
It's possible, but maybe not recommended.
No,
pump gas, like even if you tune it down to like 17 or 18 psi, where kind of like a stage 3 WRX STI would be. That's still a really solid result on a stock car. Yeah. With the stock turbo, stock fueling, and everything.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. So with a normal road pull simulated, still 3,700 RPM is where you're able to make 22 pounds of boost. Yeah. That is also crazy to me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a lot nuts. Like the old EJs and everything else on the stock turbo.
In fact, that's quick for an EJ.
Yeah. Oh, especially considering it's running all the factory exhaust.
I mean, the factory exhaust. Yeah. Factory intake, factory cats, factory everything.
Wow, that's great.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
All right, I got to ask, because I know the answer, but I have to ask because this is what everybody's asking now, is what about E85? Have you put any kind of ethanol into the fuel tank to see what that does? Yeah, better cooling, better reliability, better resistance to knock. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to an ethanol-based fuel in these cars. Yeah. And especially with direct injected cars. Because of the higher compression ratio, like if you really move that bar for knock way down, it can open up some potential. So what happened? What did you do? We mixed up some E30. It was quite an elaborate process for me because I typically like flex fuel and I like to be able to just jump in. I have a drum of E98 here, so I can usually just mix up what I want, read it on the screen. But these days we don't have that yet. Hopefully that'll come out. But anyway, so I have a fuel pressure gauge over there with a bypass, and so I was using the bypass to drain it and mix, and so I would drain it a little bit, and then measure it, and then I would put that back in the tank and add either gas or ethanol until I got to E30. So you mixed the fuel in the tank until you knew you had 30% ethanol. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then basically I just started tuning it on E30. Okay. So yeah, this is more like, it looks like a diesel torque curve. It really does. It's such an early spooler, comes up and loses it by 6,000 a little bit. Still 346 pound-feet or horsepower there on a dyno jet or whatever. But as far as torque, let's switch to that number. So this is more of the torque curve here, and we can see it's hitting 353 torque right there. And what RPM is that peak torque? 4,300. 4,300. So So on the 85, a little bit later spool, but a much higher number. What about boost pressure? What did you?
Also 22. Yeah, I didn't change it, and I could probably pull that last millimeter shut of the wastegate. I just don't. I might today, but I haven't done it yet.
So is a lot of this game then with timing?
Yes, most of this game is timing and just the way the fuel runs. It's also air fuel ratio is a little bit different on this.
So basically same boost pressure, 30% ethanol, and massive difference in torque, and then that's translated to a big horsepower difference to the point where with your corrected number here and elevation 292.
Yeah,
close to
for
300
torque.
horsepower.
No, that's the torque. It actually made 313 horsepower.
313 horsepower. Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen as much as 315. Yeah. So it's something else. I'm really happy with this.
With your experience, how does that compare? Again, we're talking about a totally stock car here.
Yeah.
A totally stock car, unmodified, with previous generation Subarus like the FA20 or the STI. I mean, that seems high.
It's very high. Yeah, I'll say at E85. So if we were able to put 70% or up to 100%, that doesn't make a difference on the EJ. It doesn't seem to my knowledge most of the time. But this is about the number we would get. In fact, these are both the numbers we would get on an STI, say a 21 STI with Stage 3, with actual aftermarket exhaust and things that we aren't going to be doing anymore.
Right.
So this is pretty amazing, and it stays within all these great rules. So I'm very happy. I wouldn't say great rules, but rules.
What is so cool to me about this is like one of the things that people that weren't into Subarus could always point the finger to is that there was just not a lot of potential in stock cars. Mm-hmm. You really had to start bringing parts to the party. You had to do a lot of bolt-ons to really unlock a lot of potential out of the car. Yeah. And what's crazy here is you're seeing so much potential out of a stock Subaru. Yeah. Which is these gains. I mean, from stock to E30 map, what is the difference? It's almost 100 horsepower, isn't it? Or 100 foot-pounds of torque?
Let's take a look here. Let's just do the math here. So we've had 251 on the stock car, and here we've got 313. So about 62 horsepower. Yeah.
That's a ton. And even if you don't go E85, it's like another 40, 50 horsepower?
Yeah. So that would be 285 was the highest I saw.
35.
So, 35 horsepower over stock on a really aggressive map.
On a completely stock car.
Yeah.
That's a ton.
Yeah,
without anything added.
The torque is a much bigger difference. So, the peak torque, this number here, this is for me brake boosting it up on accident. Well, not on accident, but just not hitting the go button is at the same time. But I would say the peak torque is about the 237 mark, whereas on a custom tune we're at 307. So that's a much bigger difference.
70 foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah, 70.
That's something you're absolutely going to feel.
Yeah.
So, man, it makes me excited about the potential of this car, and makes me think that this car is going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people without a lot of tweaks. Yeah. Whereas on previous cars, you really would have to throw an exhaust, maybe a turbo, injectors, intercoolant, all that to get into this ballpark of performance. And here, you're basically a custom tune away on a stock car.
Yeah.
From that kind of performance. I mean, with this car, it's not limited. It's not like a limited edition STI or anything. It's just, if you want one, you can go down and order it. There's no limit there. It's just the limit of.
I'll have to start saving my money.
It's a really impressive car. And if you go back to where Viet and I actually went out and drove these, I mean, that one of the things that the impression that I had right away is just how much fun this car was to drive, just totally stock. Mm-hmm. They really did a lot of improvements, a lot of good improvements to the suspension. The brakes do need a little bit of work. That's probably the weak spot, but the suspension is actually really good on this car. Sure. And now knowing that the engine is this good, I mean, I think this is going to be a fun car. I think that the more that people drive these things, the more they become available. Yeah, home run. But thanks for inviting us down. It's really cool to see, now on the dyno, what the tuning potential is, what the potential of this car is, and just how much is there from the factory. It's pretty cool. It's a lot. There's a lot here. And I definitely don't think I'm done developing maps on these stock cars either. And I've already got 3 or 4 customers lined up for next week with this car. So it's slow in the winter around Christmas. Sure. Well, it's winter. It's cold. It's icy. I mean, that's not when you need power. But I mean, and if flex fuel ever becomes available for this car, which I know the Cobb is working on,
Yeah.
man, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
It's going to be a game changer. Well, thanks again, Harvey, for having us down here. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.
Thank you.